Alaina Reed Hall, known for her unforgettable role as Rose on 227 and Olivia on Sesame Street, faced incredible highs and heartbreaking lows throughout her life. Behind the laughter and warm smiles, she endured the tragic loss of her husband, actor Kevin Peter Hall, just 3 years into their marriage. But even as she bravely continued her career, a final devastating battle with breast cancer brought her story to a close in 2009. What were Alaina's last moments like, and how did she face the end of her incredible journey? Alaina Reed Hall was someone you couldn't help but love. Her smile was infectious, and her warmth came through every time she was on screen. If you grew up watching Sesame Street, you probably remember her as Olivia Robinson, the sweet photographer who was always there to lend a helping hand. But Alaina's journey to Sesame Street wasn't easy, and her story is one of hard work, talent, and some really tough personal battles. Alaina was born on November 10, 1946, in Springfield, Ohio. As a kid, she was always singing and performing. By the time she got to college at Kent State University, she had found her place on stage. She loved it. During the mid-1960s, she took part in several school productions. Her performances in shows like The Streets of New York and It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman hinted at the bright future ahead of her. Alaina was also in a girl group called Tiny and the Dunaways. They performed locally and made a small name for themselves. It was her first taste of the spotlight, and she loved every second of it. But that was just the beginning. After her time at Kent State, Alaina's career started to take off. She joined a group called the Velours in 1966, and they played regularly at a club in Ohio for nearly 2 years. She was small in size, people often called her tiny, but her voice was anything but small. She could fill a room with her voice, and she quickly became the heart of the group. Alaina was not only a talented singer, but also a passionate performer. She loved entertaining people, and it showed in everything she did. In the 1970s, Alaina started focusing more on acting. She packed up and moved to New York City, a big move for a small-town girl. It wasn't long before she landed roles in off-Broadway productions. In 1974, she was part of the original cast of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on the Road. It was a fun, lively show that allowed Alaina to show off both her acting and singing chops. She also performed in the musical Hair, both in the Chicago production and a revival years later. Then, in 1976, something huge happened. Alaina landed a role on Sesame Street. She became Olivia, a kind-hearted photographer, and the younger sister of Gordon. For kids all over the country, Olivia was like a friend, someone they could look up to and learn from. Alaina brought warmth and kindness to the role, made her an instant favorite. She stayed with the show for more than a decade, becoming a key part of the Sesame Street family. But Alaina didn't stop there. In 1985, she was cast as Rose Lee Holloway on the sitcom 227. Rose was a strong, independent single mother who always had a joke ready and was fiercely protective of her friends and family. Her role on 227 showed a different side of Alaina's talents. She was funny, confident, and had a way of making you laugh while also making you think. 227 was set in a Washington, D.C. apartment building, and Alaina's character Rose was right in the middle of all the action. She was Mary Jenkins' best friend, played by Marla Gibbs, who was the lead character in the show. Mary was known for being sharp-tongued and always in the middle of the neighborhood gossip, and Rose was often the voice of reason. If Mary was fired up about something, you could count on Rose to help calm things down. But don't get it wrong, Rose could throw out a good joke or bit of gossip herself when needed. Together, Rose and Mary would often sit on the front stoop of their building, talking about the latest happenings in the neighborhood. Their chemistry was real and relatable. You could see them as real-life best friends, chatting, laughing, sometimes getting on each other's nerves, but always having each other's backs. Pearl, another neighbor played by Helen Martin, would chime in from her window with her sly and often hilarious comments. It was these small moments that made 227 such a special show for so many people. It felt like you were peeking into real-life friendships with humor and heart at the center of it all. Rose's story wasn't just about being Mary's sidekick, though. She had her own life and struggles. She was a single mom to her daughter, Tiffany, played by Kia Goodwin. Tiffany and Mary's daughter, Brenda, were best friends, which added another layer to Rose and Mary's relationship. You saw them as mothers and neighbors, but also as strong women balancing their own challenges. Rose's role as landlady also brought a lot of drama and humor. In the first episode, she suddenly found herself in charge of the whole building when the stingy landlord, Mr. Calloway, passed away. Rose wasn't expecting this responsibility, but she took it on with grace and strength. She handled the quirky tenants and the building's problems with her usual calm and steady approach, even when things got tough. As 227 continued into its later seasons, the dynamics of the building began to shift. Rose remained landlady for 4 seasons, but in the 5th and final season, the show introduced a new character, Julian C. Barlow, played by Paul Winfield. He became the new landlord, wealthy and snide, adding a fresh layer of comedy to the show. Rose's character still held her ground, and even as the series wound down, Alaina's portrayal of Rose continued to be a bright spot. After 227 ended in 1990, Alaina continued working in television. She appeared in guest roles on shows like Herman's Head and Blossom. She even lent her voice to animated characters on Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego? She never let up, always finding new ways to keep her career alive and exciting. In 1995, she co-starred on a short-lived WB sitcom called Cleghorn, which starred Ellen Cleghorn. Even though the show didn't last long, Alaina kept showing up, trying new roles and exploring different genres. One of her more memorable appearances came in the television movie The Cherokee Kid in 1996. In that movie, she starred alongside a big cast in a Western comedy, showing off her range once again. Alaina also had recurring roles on well-known shows like Ally McBeal, Any Day Now, and ER. No matter how big or small the part was, Alaina always gave it her all. She wasn't just a one-trick pony. She could do it all. Drama, comedy, and everything in between. Alaina's talents weren't limited to television. She also appeared in several feature films. In 1992, she had a role in Death Becomes Her, a dark comedy starring Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn. The film was quirky and full of special effects, and while Alaina didn't have the lead, her presence in the movie added that extra charm she always brought to her roles. In 1999, Alaina appeared in Cruel Intentions, another popular film that leaned into dark themes of revenge and manipulation. Again, it wasn't a lead role, but Alaina always had a way of standing out no matter the size of her part. Then in 2007, she was in an independent movie called I'm Through with White Girls, The Inevitable Undoing of Jay Brooks. This movie was an indie comedy about dating and identity, and Alaina brought her usual blend of wit and warmth to the role. Alaina Reed Hall's personal life was just as eventful as her career. While she was making a name for herself on television, she was also experiencing the ups and downs that come with love and family. She was married 3 times and had 2 children along the way. Her first marriage was to a man named Richard Cook. Together, they had 2 children, and for a while, things seemed to be going well. But like many marriages, it eventually ended in divorce. Alaina kept her family life fairly private during this time, balancing her career and motherhood as best as she could. Even with the challenges of being a single mom and working in Hollywood, she never let it affect her work. She remained a professional, and you would never know from watching her on screen what she might have been going through in her personal life. Then, in 1988, Alaina's life took a new turn when she met actor Kevin Peter Hall. You might recognize Kevin for his towering height, he was over 7 feet tall, and for his role in the movie Predator, where he played the creature itself. He was a guest star on 227, and it didn't take long for Alaina and Kevin to fall for each other. The chemistry between them wasn't just on screen, it was real, and soon they were in love. In December of that same year, they got married. Their love story was sweet and full of hope. They even got married both on the show 227 and in real life, which made their connection even more special to fans. It seemed like Alaina had finally found her match, someone who understood the pressures of show business and supported her through it all. But their happiness was short-lived. In 1990, Kevin was in a car accident and had to undergo surgery. During that surgery, he received a blood transfusion. Tragically, the blood he received was contaminated with HIV, which was discovered later on. Kevin's health began to decline, and by 1991 he was diagnosed with AIDS-related pneumonia. It was a devastating blow to both Kevin and Alaina. She stood by his side through the entire battle, but sadly, Kevin passed away on April 10, 1991, just shy of his 36th birthday. Losing Kevin was a crushing loss for Alaina. They had only been married for a few short years, and suddenly, he was gone. She had to carry on without him, which couldn't have been easy, especially since they were so deeply connected. Alaina continued working and trying to move forward, but the loss of Kevin was something she carried with her. Years later, in 2008, Alaina found love again. She married a man named Tamim Amini. It seemed like Alaina had found peace after all the heartbreak she had endured. Her third marriage was a quieter chapter in her life, and they stayed together until Alaina died in 2009. Alaina Reed Hall's life wasn't just about acting and singing, though those talents made her a household name. At her core, she was a deeply spiritual woman who believed in faith, love, and kindness. During one of her interviews, she spoke openly about her relationship with God and how it guided her through the ups and downs of life. She talked about how grateful she was for every blessing she received, both big and small. For Alaina, faith wasn't just something she talked about, it was a way of life. She believed that God had a purpose for her, and she tried to live in a way that honored that purpose every day. You could hear the gratitude in her voice when she spoke about her blessings and her career. Alaina was more than just Rose from 227 or Olivia from Sesame Street. She was someone who deeply cared about people. She encouraged viewers to reach out, send prayer requests, or just share their stories with her. It was this connection with people, the ability to make others feel seen and heard, that set her apart from so many others in Hollywood. Her strong faith carried her through the hardest times, including the loss of her second husband, Kevin Peter Hall. In interviews after Kevin's death, Alaina often spoke of how her faith helped her cope with such a devastating loss. She knew Kevin was with God, and that gave her comfort. She talked about how Kevin was her biggest fan and how she was his. Even in her grief, she found solace in believing that he was just on location, doing his work in heaven, and that they would be reunited someday. It was this faith that helped her keep going, despite the incredible pain she must have felt after losing the love of her life. Alaina's final battle was with breast cancer, a fight she fought bravely until the end. On December 17, 2009, at the age of 63, Alaina passed away at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California. Her death was a heartbreaking moment for her fans, friends, and family. After her passing, her ashes were scattered into the Pacific Ocean off Hilo Bay, a fitting tribute to a woman who brought so much light and love to the world. Her husband, Tamim, made sure that her final resting place was one of peace and beauty, just like the way she lived her life. Even though Alaina is no longer with us, her legacy lives on. Whether you knew her as Rose from 227, Olivia from Sesame Street, or through her many other roles on stage and screen, there's no doubt that she made an impact. Her warmth, talent, and unwavering faith left a mark on everyone who had the privilege of watching her perform. Her story is one of resilience, love, and the power of faith to carry you through even the darkest moments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest content. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share your favorite memories of Alaina.